Every time you look at it, you say, we didn't discuss it sufficiently. On page Nun Zayin. We'll start at the very end of the second line from the top. Before that, the Rebbe says, that the effect of the makif of Adam Kadmon, which is the central discussion right now. By the way, just a reminder, you say makif the Adam Kadmon. What is the inference there? The makif of Adam Kadmon. What other makif is there? So right in the beginning we said that there is two levels of makif. There is the higher level of makif, which is emanating directly from the Etzer. There is the makif that translates in being a makif, in effective, a makif to the world.
Hi, Shlomo.
Makif, Adam Kadmon, this is the lower level of makif. The reason we discuss a lower level of makif is because the general discussion is the effect of the makif
Tell him to try again.
on the pnimi.
Well, he tells me to tell you to try again.
Because certainly the makif has an effect on the pnimi.
Call me back at my phone.
Certainly the makif has an effect on the pnimi. That was pointed out way back, even though it's much superior. Now the question is, what is the effect? Now we're talking about the effect of the makif, the lower makif, Adam Kadmon, on the pnimi, on the Yid. And he says, the effect of the makif is that it results by the Yid near from Kabbalah, Seim Achar Shamayim.
So the two levels of Nimi is the two levels of Makif is Makif Nimi and
no, the high makif. I don't remember but the not makif. Makif. Every makif has to have an effect on the pnimi. And we're discussing what is the effect of the makif on the pnimi.
doesn't work.
And the Rebbe said, we're discussing the lower
Doesn't
makif.
work.
But they get makif.
Use your phone for now.
But I'm leaving in 5 minutes.
I'm sending him a new link.
He's sending you a new link. Hello?
That the makif, the effect of the lower makif is that it results in the union of Kabbalah Seim Achar Shamayim. And the Rebbe discusses that this Kabbalah is, that this makif is a koyach nela. It's unobtrusive, it's unrecognizable, its presence. And yet it has an effect. And the effect is in Kabbalah Seim Achar Shamayim. Somehow and for some reason, a Yid has been from Kabbalah Seim Achar Shamayim, of taking on the yoke of heaven and sensing that there is a malchus in which he is, under which he is functioning. And he has to submit to it. Not only he has to submit, but he wants to submit. Kabbalah Seim Achar Shamayim, Berotzu. This makif has the effect that he wants to Berotzu. He recognizes the significance of this makif, what he does for the world, what he does for him, and therefore he's mekabel oil malchus shamayim berotz. Although it is a complete, it's just a beat of Kabbalah Shem Shamayim. And the Rebbe explains the difference between this Kabbalah Shem Shamayim that he says also berotzim, but it's in a very ne'alam and a subtle manner, is that there is not an expression of this rotzim. When there is an expression of the rotzim, then there is an excitement in the person. He is pursuing something. He's looking for something. In this rotzin, in Kabbalah Shemach Shamayim, there is not a pursuit of anything. Because there is not a real his galus or rotzin. And yet the rotzin is definitely functional, and it somehow it has an effect on the person. And the effect on the person is that it causes him to be dedicated to the service of the Malchus Shamayim. And so Mesiru and Sinu. Generally speaking, the Rebbe says that when there is a rotzing, a pronounced rotzing, there is an excitement in nefesh. He's spoiled, he's affected. And there is a union of identifiable pursuit. But the Kabbalah says, Malchus Shamayim, there is not that type of excitement. And the Rebbe says further, we'll start in the middle of the third line. Even at Rosh Hashanah, which is the center of the union of Kabbalah Shem Malchus Shamayim. That is the whole focus of Rosh Hashanah. Shehubi is galus or rotzin. When there is his galus, when the rotzin is pronounced, there's a cognizance that this is what one wants. Kabbalah Shem Malchus Shamayim. That's the whole avodah of Rosh Hashanah. To recognize the Malchus Shamayim and to accept it, to submit to it. And even there, AYIN REBBE follows a nefesh. He does not bring about and does not function his follows a nefesh with an excitement in the nefesh. Because the principle of Kabbalah soil is that there is not a personal involvement. There is not a personal recognition of what he is doing. He is submitting. His spoilers excitement is the result of two things coming together. In this case, this would be the union from Lakus, and the nefesh recognizing the presence of the Lakus. And therefore, the nefesh becomes his spoilers. Look what I discovered. Whereas in union from Kabbalah soil, Malchus Shamayim, although there is Malchus Shamayim and there's a rotzin and so forth, we discussed this rotzin, where it comes from. There's a rotzin, there is a real recognition, but there is not a hispoiler, there's not an experience of encountering something. Because the Malchus Shamayim is, as we said several times in the last few days, is an omnipresent. This is a koyach nela. It is there by virtue of its being there. It's not something that needs to be brought forth. And therefore, it does not elicit any kind of an encounter. Oh, I discovered something. And this is why there is not this excitement of discovery. How then does this rotzing, the fact that the rotzing on Rosh Hashanah is expressed in Gilui, how is that, what is the effect of it being Gilui? If there is no hispoilus benefesh, there's no excitement of discovery. So the Rebbe says there is no hispoilus. And this is now the fourth line from the top. The way this is expressed, the way this is brought forth, the way it functions is not an infant excitement of discovery, but mesino dedication. B'chol atzmusei means his entire being. Again, what's the emphasis here? It is not a dedication that one identifies, and so it's what he is dedicated to. His seichel does not, the seichel identifies what he is dedicated to. This is not what happens in Rotzin. In Rotzin, he is Moshe b'chol atzmusei, with his entire being. There is not an identifiable aspect. What is it that's compelling him to be dedicated? Because this Gilui, this presence is a koyach nelam, is an all-encompassing unit. This is the reality, period. There is no identifiable element within or without this reality. It's all-encompassing. It's embracing him completely from top to bottom. And therefore his entire being is completely dedicated to this union. The important point here that is that there's a rotzen in this. Usually, one would say, if this is something which is happening by a superior effect, he's not even aware of it. So therefore, if he's not aware of it, there is not the element of rotzah, there's not the element of I want it, choice. It is done for him. But we are pointing out that in Kabbalah Shemayim, despite the fact that it is really a supreme presence, there is nevertheless a gili of rotzah. There is nevertheless a cognizance that he is encompassed within something. There's a rotzah takiv, chosov takiv. He is dedicated to following the path of this rotzah. In the Kabbalah Shemayim, there is no yitzia mehagdor. How then is this Kabbalah expressed? How can you recognize that there is Kabbalah? So the Rebbe says on the fourth line, we see in B'chinas Mesira, and Sina b'chol atzmus. A complete dedication. He completely retranslates, so to speak. Re-identifies himself, not as an entity unto himself, but as part of this oil makif. Mesira and Sina b'chol atzmus of its entire being. Shemo yisei v'noisin kol atzma, or mehusei v'lelakus. He dedicated his entire being, or mehusei, his entire truth, his entire significance, lelakus. Let's talk about Mahusei for a moment. It's a very broad term. Mahusa means Mahu, what is he? Now, if you say, what is he? What is a human being? What is a nefesh ha'odom? Nefesh ha'odom, Odom is the supreme creation in the world. Absolute supreme. It is so supreme that it actually brings significance to the world. The world without a human being would be an insignificant presence, and no matter how great it is. He is the bright light in the world. He is what brings the world a sense of value, of meaning. How do we identify the mahus of the nefesh ha'odom? We cannot. The reason we cannot is because it's due to the fact that it is all-encompassing. It goes from top to bottom, from the highest, from what we say, rotzen and noineg, and the full cognizance of the kuts, all the way down to a functional level of activity, of action, as Maisha Achshava Dibur Mais. He represents the entire creation. The creation of the world is a divine creation and has divine significance. And divine, we always say divine beauty, glory, grace. At the same time, this creation provides and demands that there be activity at the lowest level. As right in the beginning, when the Odom Rishon was created, Hashem instructed him, he said, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth with Yeshua and capture it, conquer the earth. Conquering the earth means make the earth recognizable, make it recognizable that you are there in the world. Where? In every place in the world. Build it up, develop it. On the earthly level, which can only be happen not by singing and learning and thinking, but you have to actually build. Change, so to speak, the contours of the world. This is what the human being is. This is what mahus. Mahus of the human being is, starting from emunah, from the highest qualities. It's called emunah, all the way down to the simplest activities. As we point out all the time, at the simplest level, when a human being walks, he's walking like a human being, not without concern as to where he steps, like a havdanel. Everywhere and at every level of his activity, the human quality is recognizable, so that he, in fact, embraces the entire existence. That's a human being. This mahus, which is all-encompassing, is totally dedicated to Elokus. He doesn't claim anything to himself. I represent Elokus in every aspect of my existence. Bishop Sata is Moshe and also Elokus. He doesn't seek any individual, his own identification. What do I stand for? His whole being is dedicated to reveal the Elokus in the world. This is how the Kabbalah says Rosh Hashanah is identifiable, recognizable in the human being, in the fact that he rededicates himself to Avodas Hashem. In what part of it? Not his hands and feet. Mahus, his whole mahus, his seichel, his midas, all these qualities are representing and constantly speaking of Elokus. Okay, now let's go inside. The fifth line, which begins with the word mahus and Elokus. V'ho begila v'nafesh. This Kabbalah says Machas Shamayim of Rosh Hashanah is begila v'nafesh. Is truly begila. It is identifiable. He recognizes, he senses that he is now in a state of Kabbalah. Again, Kabbalah means accepting the yoke, which means submission. So there is not an element of intellectual process. And yet it is begila. This is why we said there's a rotz. So the Rebbe explains, the Kabbalah says, Machas Shamayim Dechol Hashonah. Kabbalah says, Machas Shamayim throughout the year, which is really an imperative throughout the year. There has to be Kabbalah says, Machas Shamayim. Einay begila v'nefesh. But that Kabbalah throughout the year, it is not begila v'nefesh, it is not recognizable in nefesh. He goes on with his daily affairs without recognizing that he is actually in the service, in the divine service. The Kabbalah says, Machas Shamayim, the Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, which is unique, which is the time of, like I said, the Melech is beginning. And therefore, at that time, he recognizes that he is Makabel Machas Shamayim, who begila v'nefesh. That Kabbalah saying on Rosh Hashanah, his begila is recognizable. He senses, he knows that he is in a state of Kabbalah saying Machas Shamayim. Avol, however, still, ein zeh b'bchinas itzio b'geder kelim. This is what we're showing over here to explain that although there is a Kabbalah, so even there's a rotzin, but it's not a rotzin in the same sense as normally a rotzin that drives a person out to go and pursue something. It is not b'bchinas yitzim b'geder kelim. It's not stepping out. Kabbalah Rosh Hashanah, Kabbalah Machas Shamayim is not. Does not brings about a state of yitzim b'geder kelim, of stepping forth b'geder kelim from the boundaries of containment. In other words, there is not loss of self-control. It is a conscious Kabbalah saying, but yet it remains on a subtle level. Because, this is going back to what you're talking, because the effect, what elicits this Kabbalah saying, is the effect of the presence of a makif. A makif is a koyach nela. It occurs in abtrupsif. You don't experience its content, which we discussed in the last few days. This is why it does not affect any kind of special excitement. They said losing oneself, acting uncontrollably, together Kate. But yet still, okay, so we are at the end of the 6th line now. מקומו כמו יצליל, הרי הקבולסים החשומים בראש השונה. Kabbalah Machashamayim of Rosh Hashanah is different than throughout the year. Because there the Kabbalah he berotzin chozok b'nefesh. It's a Kabbalah that brings forth and expresses itself. A rotzin chozok, a powerful rotzin, a complete dedication in nefesh. So although this is Kabbalah by definition means self-nullification. There is no personal experience involved in Kabbalah. Complete nullification and dedication. And yet there is a Rotzon Chozek. Rotzon Chozek means a personal desire, a personal pursuit. And this is the challenge over here. To recognize the possibility of the correlation of these two things. The element of Kabbalah soil and the element of Rotzon Chozek. Rotzon, by definition, seems to be implying a choice. This is what I want. Kabbalah soil ignores this for choice completely. There is the melech and I'm submitting to it. Accepting the yoke. Accepting this is oil is a yoke. A yoke means anything that is done with personal experience and personal delight is not a yoke. A yoke is that which is imposed on a person without his consent, without his awareness. So we're saying that there is, at Rosh Hashanah, there is this combination of two things. Kabbalah soil malchus shamayim, which is accepting of a yoke which is superimposed upon him. Because there's a malchus shamayim, there's a melech, the presence of the melech, that completely eliminates, negates your own choosing aspect. There's a total beetle to the melech. At the same time, there's a rotzon. This is not something that you're not experiencing. This is something that you're seeking and you want. And you want it not just you want it by force, but with rotzon chozok. You have a focused wanting it. Again, to whatever extent we can focus in and understand this principle, just know, to see how this is a joining of two very different qualities in the nefesh. Something that we call the rotzon. And something that we say that is Kabbalah. So we explained the other day are we able to identify a rotzon element in something that is at the point of Kabbalah, which there's no choice aspect. So we explained that in this makif that encompasses the entire existence, that causes the entire existence to be bottled to this makif. There is the element in this makif that expresses the principle that there's the makif that is embracing the world. In other words, the world is not totally oblivious to the fact that there is a makif. its presence, in fact, represents the makif that embraces it. Therefore, the supreme quality of this makif is identified and is dedicated to by the Rotzen HaNefesh, because the makif is like a behelam. But what is behelam? That there is a makif that's holding up the world. Like you gave the mashal the other day, we discussed it at great length, holding up a rock, laying on the ground and so forth. And therefore, the Kabbalah says Rosh Hashanah is a rotten chosok, because on Rosh Hashanah there is this expression of this makif. The Melech is present. Okay, let's continue now. Okay, see, this is the sixth line from the top. At the end of the line, Yodua Gamkin. This is really quite a challenging thing. Yodua Gamkin. It is also known the Ba'avedas Evet, that even in the Aved of an Evet, everybody even knows what the Evet is. Evet is a slave. A slave has no choice aspect of his own whatsoever. He is totally in obedience of the master. But in Avedas Evet, yesh b'zeh tynug. There is an element of tynug in Avedas Evet. Not only rotze, but even tynug. Tynug means a personal delight, a personal fulfillment. In Avedas Evet, there is an element of personal fulfillment of tynug. Even though he is performing this action as an Evet. He has no choice in the matter. And the Rebbe explains, this tynug is Masher Mashlim Rotzein Ha'odem, in the fact that he completes, he fulfills the Rotzein Ha'odem, the will of the master. That translates by the Eved in time. We can elaborate on this, but ultimately all the elaboration is to naught unless we bring in our own sense of the seichel of the oinag ha-nefesh. An Eved the greatest, the highest level of the Eved, intelligent level of the Eved in terms of personal experience, is that he is not just an entity in the world, but he actually has a master, an Odin. This Odin his greatness is unfathomable. You cannot even begin to define what this is. He's the real master. He really is holding up, as far as he's concerned, the whole world. And this simpleton, this Eved, has the ability and the opportunity and the privilege of fulfilling a will of this order. The fact that he is mashlim, rotzin ha'odin, this touches the Eved at the deepest crevice of his nefesh, to the point of tynug. This is what engraces him, brings into his life a sense of real presence of real value. This is what the Rebbe says. It is known also. It took much time for the Rebbe to come to bring this into this, so that we be prepared to this. That in Avedas Ebed there is a meaning of not only rotzing, but oinek. In the fact that he is mashlim rotzing ha'odem, the fact that he fulfills, he brings forth, he accomplishes the rotzing ha'odem. This gives the Ebed a phenomenal self-identity, phenomenal experience. Oinek. Something is happening through me. That the Rosh Hashanah is being fulfilled through me. So now we have seen not only is there a Rotzei Chozek in the Kabbalah Semach Shemayim, but even more than that, there is even a personal delight in the Kabbalah Semach Shemayim, the Kabbalah Semach Shemayim. And the Rebbe explains how it is. We should not misinterpret, and this is important. We are struggling, we are laboring on this. It's important that we get this clear, correct. This oineg is not that he is himself has now become an important entity. That's a complete misrepresentation, misguidance, and then he will lose it. His oineg is mashlim rotzon ha'odem. The fact that he fulfills, completes, complements the rotzon ha'odem, the will of the Odin. The will of the Odin is now have been satisfied through him. He has oinek in the fact that he was able to satisfy the will of the Odin. That gives him a great oinek to the point that his whole mitzias changes. He's not just a plain Eved. He's an Eved that has a rotzin. It's a Eved that has an oinek. He's a real entity, a real living entity. The Torah tells us about Eliezer Ebed Avraham. Eliezer Ebed Avraham, he went on a mission from Avraham to go fetch a wife for Yitzchak. And we all know the details of his whole trip and how he went on this mission. And finally, Ashgacha Protis led him to identify the person that he would like to Rivke, be a wife for Yitzchak. And he was invited in. He's a very choshev person. He came with 10 camels. He's not a simpleton. And they set him up with a feast. They said they prepared a feast for him in his honor. He sits down in front of this big feast. And he said, wait a second. I don't belong in this feast. This feast is not for me. I'm not eating a morsel of food. I have to present myself correctly first and foremost. How do I present myself? Who am I? I am Ebed Avraham. This is my supreme title.